Hello, dear Trappists. This is Nick here. Just before the show gets underway, we had a couple of technical problems with this show. I think it's to do with the software we use to record the podcast. It has an issue sometimes when we use the media board to insert drops, and it can cause the screen to freeze. And that can make it difficult for the participants to record, especially when the three other jabronis don't pay any attention to the agreed rules when that happens. So at about 50 minutes in, and again at 1 hour, 5 minutes, the screen froze for me, and the other three participants said my screen froze. I was speaking at the time, and I kept on speaking as per the rules. The other knuckleheads didn't realise that I was still being recorded and recording and speaking, and spoke over me. So there's much mirth, but we get through it. We managed to find it funny in the end, and I hope that you find these little mishaps funny as well. Okay, without any further ado, let's get over to this really steaming pile of trap.
Welcome to the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP, Trap. Please follow us and join in the conversation on Twitter @Advisor Podcast, where you can suggest ideas and themes you'd like the Trap team to discuss. Also remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on iTunes. Doing all this really helps us, which means we can do more to help you. Now let's head over to the studio for the latest pile of trap.
Yes, indeed. Welcome back, dear Trappists, to episode 12 of the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP. Trap. My name is Nick Lincoln, and joining me as ever are the three other horsemen of the apocalypse. For the third attempt at recording this, I've now throttled my nephew, who I think has shut down his Xbox, and I'm blaming him for our problems to date. The other horsemen of the apocalypse, well, they are, of course, Carl the Wodgemeister Widger, Andy Hart, and Alan the Storyteller Smith. Gentlemen, we have a show packed full of absolutely nothing, so let's please start bloody unpacking it. Mr. Hart, lead us off with some reviews of the Trap.
Thank you very much, Lincoln. Over to me for the reviews, because I did such a stellar job last time. So the first review is a good friend of the show, David Hearn, entitled Total Trap 5 stars. A dream team that would struggle to score 3 points but deserve 6 stars for this podcast. If you want to listen to an advisor monologue or interview, you'll find plenty already. But this is about real advisors having real debates about real issues and opportunities. Well worth a listen, especially for any up-and-coming advisors. Next review, alas, Smith, Hart, Widger, and Lincoln 5 stars. 4 dudes who know their financial planning stuff, chewing the fat, a nice simple premise but original and worthwhile. Lots of good insights. The final review is entitled Insightful Content with a Bite. The person who has left this has 3 emojis for their username, so we've got sort of a random sort of curry, smiley face and tongue out. If anybody can recognise themselves from that, good luck. The review is entitled Love This Format and the Interaction Between the Group. Great content and delivered in a meaningful way. Not theory, but practical. As an accountant, I want to understand more about what financial planners, not advisors, really do, and how I can better join the dots between what I do and what they do to better serve business owners and their families. By the way, they obviously have a lot of fun judging by all the edits to remove the X-rated content. Please do leave reviews. We've got a load on the Apple podcast format, but it really does help and it nudges us up the ranking. So that's it. I'll read out a few every week. Over to you, Lick Lincoln.
Great stuff. Thanks,
Andy. Can I just jump in here quickly? Because there's one thing that intrigued and kind of amused me was that how many reviews have we had? 60-something, I think.
69 rates and reviews, I think, on the Apple platform.
Reviews. We've had
one. Not that I read them every day.
We've had one-star review.
No, we've had one-star rate, Alan. One-star
rating, whatever.
That means they've just hit it. They haven't said 1 star and given a reason why. They often just hide behind the, give you 1 star, but I'm not going to tell you a reason and put my name to it.
Who could possibly give us 1 star?
Oh, there's a lot of haters out there, Between the lot of us, we've got a few people that would give us 1-star rating.
The miracle is there is only one 1-star rating. All the others haven't got around to it yet.
We're doing pretty well, though. We've got a load considering how long we've been going, and we're a fortnightly show. So, we're doing well, but please do leave a few more. So,
and look, all credit, Andy, for absolutely nailing that, because it was so really, really poor the last time. And
been practicing all morning.
Just to shout out that off air, Andy said that these reviews are very, very poorly written. So when you are leaving your 5-star review,
when you're reading them out loud,
use small words for Andy because he's going to read them out every week. I just said I like the show.
Okay,
right, onwards.
Let's put a topical timestamp on this, and hopefully the software will get us through this next stage without glitching. Mr. Smith, you have been networking using, God help us, digital business cards.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on when we jump into the meat and potatoes of the the conversation about growing your network, growing your clients. But yeah, I had anticipated, I've done my, I spent hours, days, probably weeks preparing for these shows. And I'd done a bit of work in advance because you'll be familiar with these things, these digital business cards. So I ordered one through a company called Vice or V1CE, because someone else recommended it to me. And I was hoping I was going to come on this show because I just got it the other day. I was hoping it was going to come on and say, this is the future. This is wonderful. This is amazing. You should all get ahead, get one of these digital cards. But my experience so far has not been great. Got it a few days ago and it's just a faff. It's a complete, you have to download and it just took forever and it's not completely done yet. And so it could just be me being completely, non-technical, but I don't think so. So the jury's out at the moment as to whether these things are good or not. I don't know have you guys used them? Have you had these digital business cards?
I haven't used it, but I saw somebody, I think it was on Twitter actually, doing a video of creating the wallpaper on their phone was a QR code that they set up from their LinkedIn page. Yeah. So if you met somebody, they just take a picture of your locked phone screen and it brings them straight into a LinkedIn. And I just thought that was really simple, really great idea. But if you're talking about something digital being a faff and hard to set up, it's probably not going to take on, I would say, Alan.
No, I don't think it is. And there's two things that have put me off further. First of all, it cost 99 quid to get, and I think I'm going to ask for a refund. But there is an app that you can get, someone else told me about, called Hi Me, but Hi, H-I, then Me, that does the same thing. I think it's for free. And also someone else told me, if you go and be a bunch of people, if you are at a networking event and you're going around with your phone you don't know, it's just very hard to sort of work out who you've spoken to and who was what, because it's all then in your phone, their information and your information. So no one really knows who they're talking to.
Yeah, good point.
If you think about old school business cards, you can just sort of take it out of your pocket and have a look. So let's wait and see. But I'll talk later on about getting back into the real world and meeting real people.
Just on that, if you get your LinkedIn app out on your phone, in the top of it, the search bar, if you go to search something in there, on the right-hand side, like a code thing appears. That's where you do the QR code, where you get someone to scan it, or you can scan someone else's. So go into your normal LinkedIn, hit the search in the sort of top, and there's a little sort of square box that appears to the right-hand side, and you hit that, and you've got your QR code. Have you just done it, Nick?
No, I was just making sure my phone was in airplane mode.
Okay, anyway.
Which I'd rather have hoped yours was in, Andy, to be honest, but there you go.
It's on silent
but
anyway.
It should be noted, just for future reference, that was a technology that I introduced to the podcast. There is a first for everything.
Well done, Carl. To come on to Alan's point, I did look at it because of the conversation in the WhatsApp group. I did look at the those digital business cards, but I didn't pursue it. I mean, again, we'll probably come on to this when we get onto the meat and potatoes and the client acquisition process, But I don't use business card, and they don't for me serve any utility. Right, Carl, you've got new pension rules in your neck of the woods. Talk the Trappists through them.
Big news. So. The simplification of pensions in the Irish market was facilitated by the Finance Act that was brought into law towards the end of December. So we've kind of been testing the water with a few scenarios here. And the long and the short of it is we used to have fairly stringent limits as to how much you could put into your pension on an annual basis. Those limits have just been thrown out the window, and you can contribute up to your maximum, which is €2 million, however way you want via a new PRSA.
Oh, sorry, you're saying the maximum total value, Carl, aren't you? Not $2 million a year. I mean, you could do $2 million a year if you had zero in your pension to begin with.
Sorry,
is that what you
maximum total value. Yeah. So
yeah.
I think your value in the UK is Yeah, lifetime.
Lifetime
So
value.
you guys have 1.2, don't you? And we
less than
would
that
have
A little bit below. Yeah,
Is it?
It's
So
around
we
there,
would have
100.
assumed we were heading your direction, but in fact, there has been no movement towards your direction. Although ours has come down from no limit to 5 million and then down to 2. But it looks like, we're being given kind of a period where you can imagine, right? Company director with his spouse, bona fide, employed, loads of money in the company, could only put in maybe 100, 150 grand a year, can now actually max both pensions.
Oh,
out.
wow.
Sorry, I'm
Significant.
lost here. What's changed?
That happens.
The lifetime allowance has come down for you guys. So how is that a good thing? What's changed?
No. The lifetime allowance
annual
hasn't changed over the last. The lifetime allowance hasn't changed over the last few years, maybe 5 years, I would say, maybe even longer. Your annual contribution used to be limited either by your age or by your salary and service if you're a limited company. Now they're basically saying if you're in this new PRSA contract, well, the PRSA has always been around, but they've taken away the limitation on the annual contribution. So it's opened the door for people sitting on a lot of cash to basically just max out their pension funds in one fell swoop.
That's very good news. That's just so you know, we had. I mean, I know you know this, Carl, but we had pension simplification. Was it back in 2006? Now I think it was. And that's what I said, Andy, 6. And at the time,
You were at school, Andy, weren't you?
the annual allowance was 255k, and the annual allowance was 1.5 million. Then it went up to 1.8, and it was like, whoa, this is just too good to be true. And it did turn out to be too good to be true. But for a little period there, it was very good. Now it's way hemmed in.
I suspect, Nick, that's probably what the case is going to be. That it's going to be. Open season for a couple of years until the revenue close some of this stuff off. It does. These new PRSAs, there are certain limits on what you can do. You can't have exit penalties on them, which is really, really good.
Fantastic.
So yeah,
good for you. That's good for you.
Look, there's I'm pretty critical of a lot of other stuff that's going on with them. So you still have the upfront commissions. You can still charge, I think 10%, maybe it's even more, on some of the regular premiums and all that. So there's still some of the bad stuff, but it's back on the broker now, not the client, right? So if the client stops, the broker gets clawed back. But anyway, we have a long way to go on that, but it's really, really good from a client point of view. And people should be talking to their clients. Of course, if you've been doing real financial planning and you know everything about the client, you know exactly who to talk to, how to talk to him, and when to talk to him. Whereas if you went out and just sold your little pension and you said, you put 50 grand a year into this, you have no idea of what's going on with the rest of the clients. So you're going to be behind
this
the eight
week's
ball.
episode is sponsored by Metis Ireland.
Thank you.
All your pension
everybody.
contributions.
As he stopped. Yeah. Cole, just out of interest, 70% of the AUM that I look after is in pensions. I think that's quite common for most UK IFA firms. Ballpark, what's the percentage of Metis AUM that's in pensions? Just to get a very tenuous idea of the similarities.
I think
between UK and
we
Ireland.
did the dimensional survey, and I'm tracking my brains. It's more than 50%, Andy, but it's not
50%.
70. So
Right.
It's about to be 90%.
yeah.
Which is great news, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, did you see in the press at the weekend there was talk of removing or increasing the UK lifetime allowance to encourage more people? There's a lack of. I think that the workforce is reduced by 300,000 over the last number of years. Over 50s are all leaving early because a lot of people, particularly in the public sector,
Oh, yes.
national health,
Yeah, good. Yeah,
lifetime
I get it,
allowances. What's the point in staying on building a pension fund if I'm going to get absolutely
If
hammered
I'm just
for
going to
it?
get hammered by it, yeah.
Yeah,
I like
still
it.
retiring earlier and doing other things. And so there is a early stage conversation with our current chancellor saying, I might need to look at this again, which is interesting. These things just go around in circles, don't they?
Sorry, Andy wants to, guys, let's be cognizant who wants to speak next and look at each other. Andy wants to say something.
Well, it's interesting. These people that retire at that age in their 50s, they're at like their peak contribution to the business and field that they're in. It's just mad that they just, on Friday they call it a day and on Monday they're doing nothing. It's such a waste. So yeah, the more we can encourage these people to hang around, the better. Over to you, I think, Carl or Alan. I don't know who was next. Oh, they're being very courteous now. Right, over to you, Alan.
Now they're frightened. I like this. This is good. I mean, the whole thing about the annual allowance.
We're sulking.
The lifetime allowance, the lifetime allowance should be on what you've put into the system, not what it's accrued to. That would solve everything. If you had a lifetime saying, okay, you can put £500,000 into pensions over the course of your lifetime, and that is it. And if it goes to 10 million because you've gone into equities, good for you. This whole thing of capping the output is nuts. It was nuts from day one, and it's nuts now.
Slightly odd.
Completely agree.
Okay, well that's good, Carl. And well, how quickly can we incorporate a pension advice company in Southern Ireland? Because
4.5 years.
We're itching to do it.
It depends on how big.
He'll give us an agency. We'll set up a shop. In
You
Dublin.
can say that, my friend.
Where should we be based? I've heard Limerick's quite good.
I'm available for discussion.
Consultancy.
Right.
Oh my God. Okay. Next on the topical hit list of doom is me. So just a quick one. I went on Abraham Okunsanya's Triple N's Retirementals podcast. He recorded a couple of weeks ago and it came out last week. And it was quite well received. And on the back of it, I'm sure you've all had experience of this when you get on other people's podcasts. You get advisors coming out. Yes, thank you. Advisors come out the woodwork and asking you questions about this and that, which is always quite nice for the ego. So that was quite good. And I was very, as I hope I always am, I was quite sort of transparent on the show, and we had a good back and forth. There was a moment in the podcast where Abraham was tongue-tied and didn't know what to say. Not because I've been particularly rude. We had this logical back and forth. And I said to him, silence, Abraham. And he cut that out of the podcast, much to my annoyance. Okay, that's me. Mr. Hart, tax bills, premium bonds, and standing order premium bonds.
Yeah, I just thought I'd bring this. So I seem to be very heavily involved in tax at the moment. I've got corporation tax for 2 of my limited companies at the end of December, which is always a not so nice ending to the year. I've got my personal tax bill at the end of January, and I've got 2 VAT bills to pay early February. So I'm just sort of swallowed in tax bills at the moment, which is all good. I've sort of got the money hanging around there, and it's all good. I do use premium bonds, which I know is a very UK specific thing. Premium bonds have got slightly better in terms of the interest rates at the moment, and I've actually set up some standing orders to go into premium bonds from my companies just to soften the tax blow at the end of the year. I didn't know if that's a topic that we wanted to loosely batter about now, but yeah, anyone's got any insights in relation to managing
you're paying
tax
into
bills?
Your premium bonds
mine's
from
a
your
little
companies.
bit more complicated because I run 3 different companies to the VAT. One's regulated, yada
you
yada
never
yada.
tire of telling us.
Yeah, exactly. If you've just got one company, Alan, or 2 podcasts.
Next.
I think perhaps the chairman is frozen on us again. So I think what we'll do is we'll jump straight on into the meat and potatoes. So Mr. Smith, take it away, my friend.
You're muted, Alan.
He was doing so well. He is muted. He's coming back in now.
Right.
So this is the sort of... Over to you, Alan. Over to you.
Chaotic. You think we'd never done this before. So we're back in. Nick, are we ready for some meat and potatoes?
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't. Sorry, it did phase out again a little bit. They're just on the premium bonds thing. If you covered that, I've got my tax bill to pay on tomorrow, 31st of Jan. I always leave it to I always pay right at the end of the year.
Yeah, me too.
And I put money aside in premium bonds to do that. So I took the money out of my premium bonds 2 days ago, and it's now going off to HMRC tomorrow. But that's where I sort of just I don't want it in my offset mortgage, that money, because it's a liability. I want it out somewhere else. So I put it into premium bonds, and if I win something big, I don't. Yes, thank you guys for bearing with us. I'm not quite sure what was recorded and who said what. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes, and this is part 2 of the how to win clients and influence people. A very good title put forward by Mr. Smith. That was part 1 in episode 11. The last episode, obviously. So here we are, part 2 of that, and also known as the client acquisition process. How would you go about acquiring clients at different stages of your business journey, from the startup to the burgeoning to the mature to the can't be asked to get out of bed anymore, got a headache. Mr. Smith, lead us off.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Nick, reflecting back on the last episode, I think you did a superb job. It was a masterclass of If I Was Starting. It really was good. You excelled yourself. You surprised all of us, and I think the community and the audience are still reeling from the shock. But I thought I've got a few other things that I'd like to share. This is very relevant to us in my business right now, because we're going through exactly this. We've got different people in the team at different levels, and some are kind of at or close to capacity, and others are really keen to go out and get get new business and get new clients. So very much the subject of the moment. And I'd like to position, what are you doing?
Grab yourself a drink, a very long drink.
Andy
It's
made me do it.
story time with Alan Smith.
Made me do it.
Your timing's all over the place, honestly. But as it happens, I do have a short story.
Yay!
This is shambolic, people.
Right. When I was a lad, when I worked for Standard Life and I was doing my piece and walking up and down the streets of the West End of London, knocking on the doors of IFAs and brokers,
And Alperton.
I would... I'd like to learn from other established players. And there was looking back on it, there was a guy who I got on with particularly well, and he was a high income, high producer of business. And one day I said to him, where'd you get your clients from? Where'd you get your business from? And he said, well, funny you should ask that. Come here, sit down, and I'll share with you exactly what I did. So I think this is. You can take the same things that this guy did back 20 odd years ago and apply it to today. So his name was Jonathan, and he ran he's a director of a really, really successful firm of financial planners, IFAs, whatever they're called, back in those days. And he said, what I did, Alan, when I got started, I thought of, first of all, who would be a good audience? Who would make good prospective clients? He said, my older brother was a lawyer. He said, and he was making really good money, and all his mates were making really good money. I thought, I know, I'll be an advisor to lawyers. I said, so what I next then did, he said, you can get and I'm sure you can get a digital version of this, but he said, you can get the Law Society yearbook, and it lists every single lawyer, barrister, QC in the country. And it also lists when they qualified. So you could reverse calculate that and work out roughly what age they were, give or take a year or two, based on when they received the qualifications. So he said, I simply went through that list every week. I looked at anyone who was aged over 50, by which time they worked out, obviously their children are likely to be older, they'd be more focused on their retirement planning, and I would write them a letter. He said, I'd get 10 a week, and I would write them, not an email or anything, a formal letter in the post, and I would offer them, it was very, very courteous, very nice letter. He said, and I would offer them an opportunity to have an impartial review of their pension arrangements. He said, and it was a pure numbers game. He said, every Friday, I'd write 10 letters. The following Friday, I'd make phone calls to the 10 people I'd written to a week, 7 days before. Super courteous, super friendly. Hello, I wonder if you'd received my letter, and I would offer them free impartial review. And he said, pure numbers game. He said, 6 or 7 said, not interested, got someone else, not bothered. 2 or 3 would say, yeah, maybe. And 1 generally would say, yeah, actually, I need to pay some attention to this. He said, it was all about my system. I did it every week, week after week, year after year. The last time I spoke to Jonathan, he had something like, approaching £1 million of personal recurring revenue. And his fee model was 0.5%. And he outsourced investment management to somebody else. The point of this was, if you just distill down and look back what he did, it was a version of what you did. You did a sort of modern version of this, Nick, but the same rules apply. He identified a niche. He offered something of value, however you want to describe that. And the most important thing was, and this is where most people give up, he had a system. He just did it week after week, month after month, year. He did it for years, and he's retired now. Did it for years, built up a huge multi-million pounds assets under management. And then, of course, after a while, you become known as the go-to guy, the pension guy in this case, for the legal sort of fraternity of London. And I'll summarize that. If you've read the book, Carl often talks about this, Atomic Habits, James Clear. What he says is, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So all Jonathan did was just have a system, week after week, month after month, and became hugely successful. Most people give up after a few months if they haven't had huge success. That's a brief story. That summed up one idea that people can do. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Widger?
Yeah, brilliant. The thing I'm absolutely loving about that example, Alan, is exactly what I mentioned the last day. It's hard work, and it's consistently hard work over a long period of time to be successful. And I honestly, I think that that's what a lot of people are missing these days, if I'm being frank. And that's my concern also with the marketing masterclass that Nick set out the last day, that you'd get too comfortable sitting behind a laptop and researching people and accounts and all of that kind of stuff. And so when I was thinking about this and kind of, you know, how maybe could I impart some of my experience, right? We've got clients who, I'm just going to call them Sean and Mary, significant clients. I got a phone call standing outside Humans Under Management in London a couple of years back saying, "Hi, Carl, my name is Mary. I've read your article in the Sunday Times and I'd like to talk to you about investing business." Anyway, long story short, went over, we got the clients on board. But prior to the clients coming on board, another client of ours, let's call him John, rang me up and said, "I've just spoken to Sean and Mary and they're interested in talking to you." And I went, "Oh, fantastic," because I'd already got the phone call about, "I read your article in the Sunday Times." And then about a week later, Helen, who happens to be Sean and Mary's daughter, I kind of know, pinged me an email to say, "My mum and dad have been on to me about Financial Advisor. I've seen your stuff and I've forwarded on some of your blogs and articles." And then in a review meeting, recently enough, they said that Sean and Mary told me that, "Oh yeah, we used to read all your blogs, watch all your videos before we became clients," right? Forgive the very long story. The point is there wasn't one thing only. It was a culmination in a load of different things that allowed us to be trusted by these people for us to manage their money. Along with the fact that their existing advisor was making an absolute bags of it, right? That obviously helped us. But I think I read somewhere in terms of marketing that it takes 9 touch points or something like that before a client will consider doing business with you. So I just wanted to make that point, right? And I don't have much more to add on this, right? Other than there's lots of different things lead to clients becoming clients. And I don't think it's only one thing. And I did make the point the last day, focusing on one thing only might be detrimental for a new advisor. I'd be trying loads and loads of things. And as I mentioned before, we now have a sales playbook, which is basically everything that we've tried over a long period of time that has worked in one playbook. And no, nobody can have that. That is private to us. But it's we could have a playbook double that size of the stuff that didn't work. You got to try loads of things and just keep going. But I think Alan's point is probably the best point. It's consistently doing the right things over a long period of time. And that's hard.
Okay, Andy. You're muted, Andy.
Shambles.
God, we've got this new rule that when you're not speaking, you better mute yourself, but we're obviously not very good at unmuting ourselves.
It's the Widger rule, because apparently I was sniffling.
Yeah, his heavy breathing last episode. I would agree with both points. It's something I bang on about. It's like a personal mantra of mine. Do the work, do your work. So whatever your work is, do it and do it consistently, certainly around the client acquisition. A few points on that. We do financial planning with all of our clients. Some questions that often rock up with that is, how often do you update it? What output do you give to clients? Just you have a system. So every year we update it. Every year we take an output. Every year we share it with them. They might not be too engaged at every year point, but at some points they'll be more engaged. Just do your work and do your systems. And when it comes to marketing and content, I create a load of content for end consumers. I create a load of content for advisors. And you're right, Carl, you never really know when they've directly contacted you where it's exactly come from. Do your work. The other thing that's quite interesting, I think maybe Nick might concur with this, things like bed and ISAs we've been doing for our clients for years and years and years just sound like a complete faff, a load of hassle. But the fact that we've done it for all these years leading up to it, when there hasn't been that much value been added to our client, when the CGT rules change and the interest rates rise, all that money that we shoveled into the ISAs has made total sense long term. Whereas for the last 10 years, we've been doing this bed and ISA, shifting 200 grand for an individual. It's just a shed load of work and doesn't really add any value to anyone. Now, us doing our work comes to fruition. So, yeah, I'm a big proponent of do your work, do the work. Over to you, I think, Alan.
Yeah, just I'll come back and pull a couple of these strands together. I'm going to say a phrase that I heard the other day. Nick is going to throw up when I say this because he hates all this sort of modern stuff. What you want is a combination of, you want URL and IRL. The URL being digital, online, blogs, podcasts, and IRL in real life. Okay? Like it? Like it?
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's nothing revolutionary, is it?
I knew you'd like it, Nick. Now, so here's something that, and I said at the beginning about this digital business card. One of the reasons I wanted a business card, because I haven't got any, was because I was going to do a networking event. Could you believe? An IRL, in real life networking event. But here's the thing. I wasn't just going to show up at some random, get together in a hotel. A lot of my focus, my company's focus historically has been on business owners, particularly entrepreneurs as they go through scaling and selling their business. I happen to be, and as I know at least one other member of this group is a member of a private members club, which is designed for business owners called Homegrown in the West End of London. And I never really paid much attention, but they have events on all week, almost every evening of the week. I didn't really, I didn't go to any, but I thought I'm going to pay more attention to this. So a few days ago, I'd noticed they had an event on it was hosted by a firm of accountants, kind of corporate finance specialists, and they wanted to invite business owners preparing for exit. Hello, that's my target audience. So they've done all the hard work. I say I'm happy to come to this. I get a free apart from my time and attention, but it was money. It was time well spent. 3-course meal, glass of wine. Of course, I didn't drink it. But I find myself in the room with a dozen people who are 2 years away, 1 year away, 3 years away from selling their business, and some people who are experts in that market as well. Now, here's the thing. That was a good thing to do. So that's an in real life. I'm going to where my target audience are literally hanging out. But rather than me say, the old version of me would go, oh, hi, nice to meet you guys. Here's my business card. Keep in touch. Can we go for a coffee? Can I come and sell you something? Can you do something for me? I think about becoming a client. Whereas now I've got something I can say to them. Because as you know, the second best podcast in the UK is now called Bulletproof Entrepreneur. And I say to these guys, oh, I've got a podcast. You might find it interesting. Do a follow-up, send an email. Here you go. And there was a couple of guys that said, love to have you on as a guest. Happy days. All of a sudden, I'm in their community. I'm offering something of value to them. And I've gone fishing where the fish are, right? That's the thing that you need to do. Just find out if you've got a target audience, go to where they hang out and offer them something of value. The thing is, in our work, it's not like if you are a plumber and if you've got a burst pipe and there's water coming through your roof, you need someone around that now. With our work, it's not usually, very rarely is it urgent or essential. You just need to get on these people's radar and then be nurturing them, drip feeding them, introducing them to the podcast or a blog or a newsletter or an event or something. And when the time is right, they'll say, actually, we now need to meet and execute and do whatever. That's the point. So the combination, as you say, Carl, of in real life and digital seems to work quite well.
I'm just imagining the chartered accountants having a debrief the following day. How did you think the event went down? It was fantastic, except for the poxy pension salesman.
You must be joking. They love me.
Yeah, but I think, isn't that like exactly what you said? It's hang out where your target market are hanging out. And that means you're not wasting your time. And it's like, you just got to put your thinking cap on it. That's not rocket science. Like that's just using your head.
What's that famous saying about the guy, the bank robber, Willie something? Why'd you rob banks? He said, that's where the money is. Go where what you're looking for exists. Clients, money.
Just another point on this: how to win clients in the early stages. I think people need to not underestimate the power of LinkedIn. It's phenomenal, the reach that LinkedIn's got now. So certainly if you're new into this business and you want to try and attract clients, I would say focus all of your digital energy on LinkedIn. Twitter, I don't think is a good place for new advisors trying to find clients, but LinkedIn, I think, is a fantastic place. things like Facebook, again, you can go there, but it's probably going to be hassle clients, probably high hassle clients, asking you about £20 this and a £30 that, and you can do this for my children and that sort of stuff. I think LinkedIn is fantastic. I use LinkedIn extensively now for my sort of advisor company. Over to you, Nick.
Just a quick on LinkedIn, which I find a pretty awful platform in terms of its layout, but I know it's very popular as a sort of B2B area. Do you use the paid one, Andy?
Yeah, I do. Oh, sorry, no, I don't have the paid gold version, but we've done various promotions with it. But no, I don't have the gold paid one. I don't sort of spam people too much, but I do a lot of posts on it, as Alan does, I think, as well. And again, we don't know where I don't know where advisor clients or clients have come from, but I'm sure there's a lot of touch points on LinkedIn. Certainly on my advisor business, a lot of the new clients come from LinkedIn now, so I'm giving it a lot of respect.
On that, and I think that's a relevant point. We've certainly won clients both on LinkedIn and Twitter, actually, and it is a combination of both. But here's another thing that people hadn't really thought about. I try to post once a day, usually at the same time. I usually schedule it 8 a.m. in the morning. I'll post something on LinkedIn. And what you might not have thought about is your existing clients are often active on LinkedIn. And we had a guy recently, very great client of ours, very successful client of ours, and he said, I wasn't in the meeting. He spoke to one of my colleagues. He said, really like the stuff that Alan's putting out online. It really, it's quite innovative. You're pushing the boundaries. You're sort of not, being the usual nonsense that you hear about investments. So I really like that. So I thought, I hadn't really thought about that, and thought, if you've got a strong message, your audience is got to be a little bit careful about what you say, because as you know, we're just down the road of equities and investing in equities.
Again,
and not all clients are invested.
It's back to do your work. If that's what your work is, putting out posts on LinkedIn consistently. I'll never say it to your face, but your content you're putting out is pretty good at the moment, Alan.
Thank you, Nick. Do we have time to? I've got one last thing on this client.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can I ask a quick question before you jump in, Alan? You just mentioned there you post on LinkedIn at 8 a.m. Have you tested different times, or is that just because it's handy to do that, or did you find that is the best time?
I'm still testing different times, and so far there's no consistency. There's no real. What I did. I want to take these things seriously. I want to learn from other people who've done it before. So there's a guy called Justin Welsh. Don't know if you guys come across him. He's an absolute legend on LinkedIn. He's gone from nothing. He's a classic solopreneur, does $1 million a year personal income, and the vast majority of this is through
Never
LinkedIn.
Heard of him.
Check him out, Nick. He could teach you a lot. He's got a course which is about $200-300, which I've paid for, and I skimmed through it, and I should go through it again. But that's what he does. He said he posts at 8 a.m, and what he does is he hangs around for half an hour, because it's all about the engagement afterwards. You get people who then respond to you, and if you're live and just back and forward for a bit, then he goes off and does whatever his day consists of. So he's very, very thoughtful and very intentional about his strategy. And guess what? He's been hugely successful.
I just add, if just on Andy's point about if you're kind of starting out, the power of LinkedIn. If you're not sure how to get up and running, there's a girl, Stephanie Marrone, Marrone, and she does brilliant LinkedIn content, and she does her target market is kind of, I think, lawyers in the US. I don't know how, someone must have liked something. And anyway, I'm connected with her, and it's really, really good, her stuff. And if you were just to start a LinkedIn campaign, I'd say follow Stephanie for a while, see what she's doing, and kind of follow that. But that's just to back up your point, Alan. People who've been there, done that. Just, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here.
There's a real art to this. I mean, look, I am not an expert. I'm learning as time goes on, but there's a quality of posting. I see so many people do it like as an advert, and it says then, please, it's got their phone number. Please contact me. Phone me if you want to have a pension review or something. And that's just to me, that would just put me off completely.
Awful.
Just
content marketing.
Really good content.
There,
if you can narrow it down to your target audience, if it was lawyers or entrepreneurs or whatever it might be, post stuff that's interesting to, and don't they'll get in touch with you if they want to. You don't have to say, please call me for a free review or anything. Shall I'll just change subject? Same subject, but just the third thing that I would suggest people can do. And again, none of this is original. This is just ideas that I've stolen from other people and blended them together. But the concept of what I'm going to call an advocate's breakfast, and it's a one-to-one. If you can think, all of you on this, look at Nick's face. Nick, you think, Nicholas, looking at you, think of a client that you'd hate to lose and love to clone. That's a phrase. You'd hate if they called you up and said, look, I've gone elsewhere, Nick, I found something else. And if you had another 5, 10, 15 of those clients, you'd be happy. You'd be a happy boy. You think, my life is they're really lovely. They're nice. They're good fee payers. They engage with all this stuff. So you think of those, and one by one, invite them to, I say breakfast, it could be any coffee. It would be better to meet them face-to-face than a Zoom call. And you go through, I've sort of alluded to this before in previous conversation. This originally came from a guy called Dan Allison, but there's variations. Carl Richards talks about it. Other people talk about it. Meet them face-to-face. A number of things. First of all, you're just looking for some feedback. How am I doing? What do you like about my service? What do you dislike? Is there anything that you would have me do differently? Number one. Number two, I just want to tell you where I'm going with the business right now. You might have clients look at you and say, I'm not sure what Nick's probably going to sell to me. He's probably going to retire. He's probably going to do something else. Or I've met somebody down the tennis club or golf club. I'd love to introduce him to Nick, but maybe Nick's too busy. Unlikely, but you never know. So you just tell me. I'll just tell you where I am in the business right now. I'm loving the job, but and this is how it's positioned. I've got capacity. I am still going to grow the business. I've got capacity for maybe 8 or 10 new clients right now, and I'd like to offer them to you first before someone else comes and knocks on the door. People that are of people that you care about, people in your network, because ultimately I am going to have to close the door at some stage. So what to do? And the other thing you can do is if you ask the questions a very thoughtful way, and you've got 10 or 12 questions, genuine questions. But what are it's a bit of a rediscovery as well. And particularly if those people that you speak to are in a general niche, the niche could be pre-retirement, post-retirement. It could be business owners. It could be lawyers or whatever. You can extract the information that you've collected from that and create, a little mini white paper, a document, something that would be of value to someone else. And then you could offer that to their community. Just say, look, I've written this paper. It's you've helped me create it. It's all the sort of thoughts and feedbacks of people like you. I've got it on my website. If you bump into somebody you think would be of value, I've got 8 or 10 slots still available on the Arc, as Nick Murray would say. Send them to that and they can download. They can download it and then and the worst you're going to do from that experience is get some honest feedback from a good client of yours. Well, that's never a bad thing. And the good thing is you might well end up getting 1 or 2 more referrals or introductions, because you are also introducing the law of scarcity, which is I'm not open for business for everyone, but there's a few more slots still available. I want you to
love that. And I say that, Andy, I say your hand is raised, but just that's Alan, that's a really good. I think we might have touched on that before when we did an episode on the ideal client profile, but great idea. Yeah. Andy.
Yeah, it's a great saying. A client you'd hate to lose and love to clone. Yeah, that's that will stick in a lot of people's minds. So yeah, another good one from Alan.
Crikey, this is we're being very nice to Alan today, aren't we? We have to admit, this is not sitting well.
This will last.
No, this will not last.
I'm seeing him on Saturday for the rugby. I'm sure it won't last.
Okay, and so am I, Andy, just so you know. We're at 42 minutes into the show. Carl, stay with it. We're at 42 minutes. This is when you're muted, we can't hear your lovely Irish cackle. So
unmute yourself for the laughing.
I'm afraid to breathe. Right? So it's like, I'm gasping for air here.
You're on mute, mate.
Right. So I think we've done the client acquisition process. Some real justice there. We're at 42 minutes in. Do we want to do one more quick meat and potatoes item of any sort, Carl? Andy. If not, fine, we'll carry it forward.
Can I just bring up a topic, because this is kind of something that I'd like to put out there as to ask a question. So we've done before some client surveys, but we haven't been consistent with them. And we're introducing it now as part of our client journey, because we're doing a lot of work around the client journey. So we've drawn up a survey. We're reckoning, maybe 5 to 7 questions, because we don't want this to be a big faff for our clients to kind of fill in. Obviously, the Net Promoter Score question, would you recommend us to your friends and family? Obviously, that's going to be in there. But what I'd be interested in is have you guys done it? But putting this out to all of our listeners and our viewers, if anybody has, good experience around this or bad experience that we could maybe learn from, what are the questions? How many times a year did you send it out? Did you send it to all clients? Just generally speaking, any advice in terms of exactly how we do it. What I'm happy to do, if I do get any feedback on this, is once we've kind of done it, I'm happy to share exactly how we've done it, what the questions were, and maybe kind of generally speaking what the feedback was. So maybe it's something that all of us could benefit from. So Alan has a comment or two.
Yeah, Carl, you mentioned earlier on you've done the Dimensional Benchmark survey for advisors. Are you familiar with their investor survey?
Yeah.
Have you had a look at that? The reason I say that is that, as you know, anything that Dimensional do is backed by evidence and science, tons of science. I mean, they have got literally data scientists who just identify the optimized question to ask people, and they can calibrate it and they obviously compare it with everything else around the world. I can't remember how many tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people globally have participated in this. So we do that, and you can add your own questions to it as well,
Okay.
2 or 3 of your own questions, and we. But you're right. There's a balance. We're all small businesses. It's not you end up annoying people if you keep surveying them. We do it every 2 years. We adopt the investor survey supported by Dimensional, and we add a couple of our own, and it does include the Net Promoter Score and a bunch of other things. And we accept that a number of clients will just say, "Look, I'm not interested. If I'll tell you to your face if I'm not happy about something." But you do get enough. We get enough information, and the last thing I would say is there's a real art to it. We get a high engagement rate. Dimensional told me one of the highest of all the people that participate. And why do you do that? Because we lead into it. We tell people we're going to be getting in touch with you soon. There's a sort of 2 or 3 notes before we do the survey, and then it's really, really important that there's a general theme or things that people have asked or suggested. We definitely make sure that we go back to them afterwards. It's all anonymized, I think. Yeah, it is. But we go back and say these were the key themes that people raised. And I'll just say one specific thing that I thought was very interesting. We've spent years moving away from investment conversations, not talking about portfolios and investments. And I know that Nick in the recent conversation said I spent no more than 30 seconds talking about it. Well, one of the big things that came through for us was we'd like to talk about our money, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. Yeah, no,
yeah.
Fair.
So we do it, Carl. We just jump on the back of the Dimensional result.
Yeah, and you know what? Look, I'll be straight up. We did the advisor survey with Dimensional, and we just got the results in January from 2021. And I said, lads, we've moved on here. We're talking about 2022 results, and you're still talking about 2021.
Why is that?
That's unacceptable.
Some problem with technology.
Do things at different speed in Ireland? They generally turn it around quite quickly.
It's the same company. It's Dimensional.
Andy, you're itching to say something, so let the guy speak.
Well, again, I've sort of forgotten my point now, but I'll just chip in. It's going to be interesting. I haven't, but these guys have been rambling for so freaking long. Carl, I think you guys at Metis will nail this. I think it's a very interesting subject. I do get my clients to fill in various forms throughout the client onboarding and sort of being a client journey with varying degrees of success. So, yeah, you're right. When do you issue the first survey? Is it a welcome survey once they're onboarded as a client? And then is it like during the annual planning? So once they're an existing client. So are you going to have 2 surveys? The how did we do in the initial welcoming you becoming a client versus you're now a client, and how are we doing? I think you're right. 5 to 7 questions is key. How the questions are framed is obviously key. Again, the technology needs to be simple. It needs to work on an iPad, an iPhone, and obviously a desktop. Just some simple, Survey Monkey or something like that. I think you guys are going to nail it. But then, what do you then do with that information? How do you then implement it? Alan's point is interesting about us being too evangelical about not talking about investments. I mean, Nick might be a little bit different. He was being maybe a bit facetious when he's talking to his clients that have been clients for 10 years or something. So they don't really need to talk about the investment side of it. But you're right. Certainly new-ish clients that have quite a lot of money with you. If you just, over the years, I've just brushed it aside. The investments are easy. We'll sort that out later on. Like, let's talk about what you want to achieve. They're like, well, no, wait up, mate. This is actually the important thing. I know we'll sort of get onto that. I have brought the investment piece a bit more front and central in recent years because we've become too evangelical about financial planning. And at the end of the day, the clients don't really know what that is. We've got to go where the money's in flow, and it's important to them. Who's next?
Can I just put? I mean, well, as you might expect, I'm a little bit different on that. We're not here to give clients what they want. We're here to give them what they need. And I don't care if the clients want to talk about investments. That just means you've got clients who haven't been educated enough in what you do and where the value is. Is my aggressive summing up of that?
Yeah. I somewhat agree with you.
Okay. Right.
You agree with everyone, Andy. Do you agree with me? He's like, do you ever watch the Fast Show? The guy just agrees with everyone who last spoke. Yeah, Alan's absolutely right. Yeah. Oh no, Nick's right.
Oh yeah. One of my personality traits is I'm very high in agreeableness, Alan.
Oh, you're very high in agreeableness. You have very feminine traits. That was me doing Kermit the Frog doing Jordan Peterson. Okay, I think we've done the meat and potatoes.
The show's gone mad.
We're at 49 minutes in, so should we move on to the next section?
I'm on the wrong show.
Let's move on to the next section of the show, and hopefully she'll be... Oh, there she is at the door now. I can see Posty is hauling our bulging sack.
Oh my God, he's frozen. The timing is perfect.
This is the section of the show, dear listeners, where you, the Trappists, contribute.
What?
And give us...
I don't know what's
questions,
happening, but this has been a shambles from the word go.
It's all right, guys. I'll take over. I'll take over as chairman. I'll take over as chairman.
Even easier, the exact same link.
Right, for those who are not watching this
show
on
notes for this
YouTube
episode,
and listening to it,
just be quiet, guys.
if you're still with us, we
please don't ask
apologise.
the question.
Nick's
via
Nick needs to
LinkedIn
put
or
50
via
in the
emails
meter.
or what have
There he
you.
goes, he's back again.
Because that won't work.
Come on,
for
Nick,
you. So
come on.
Use the link tweet. I am talking, Alan. So if you just belt up for a second, that would be great. So let's have a look. I see 3 questions are at the top of our sack, perched precariously. Let's roll up our shirt sleeves and pull them off in no particular order. First person in the hit list.
Mark B.
It's Mark B. Thank you. Who's on Twitter at RFM1 Romeo Foxtrot Mother 1. Should you encounter a very wealthy client, e.g. in excess of 10 million to invest, do you look for alternative investment solutions to those typical clients with less money to invest? I believe you all follow similar investment philosophies, passive, factor-based, etc., which should in theory stand up even for those with many millions to invest, but the amount would make me unsure. I'm no fan of complexity for complexity's sake, but does this level of wealth warrant something slightly different? I know the big private banks would say so. End of question. Thank you, Mark B. I'll answer that, and if you want to chip in as well, of course. My philosophy is if you're investing £1, it's the same philosophy if you're investing £10, £10,000, £100,000 or 10 million. There's no reason to change the philosophy. You might at the edges change some of the tax planning for wealthier clients, and you might be looking at things like EISs and VCTs for those clients with 10 million to invest. But the investment proposition, the whole point of it is once you get it, it is universal. You're buying world capitalism and end of, and you're massively diversified in Carl's case in one fund. So no, I wouldn't change my investment philosophy. Do you guys have anything to add? Andy, your hand is up.
A lot of people, when the money gets big, they try and overcomplicate for profit. So I agree with Nick. If you're investing £1 or 100 million, technically one fund will do the job. The tax planning around it gets a little bit more complicated. I personally try and avoid these clients. It's just I put it in the too hard bucket. I don't want to get involved in teams and pandering to them. So anything sort of post 5 million, I'm generally out. I generally have an initial meeting with these types of clients. I've had some meetings with clients that are worth, considerably higher than that or whatever, but I just have an initial meeting with them to chew the fat and give them some pointers really, and then over to them to find some,
then send them over to us
jokers to usually overcomplicate it and fill up the portfolio of a load of financial trash that they don't need. But again, it looks great on paper when they've got 48 different funds with their 10 million. But yeah, it's pandering on the highest levels. Over to you, Alan.
This game is as much about psychology as it is about science or investing. And of course, I agree. You could have a 10 million, 100 million, a billion invested. At the end of the day, you're investing in 12,000 underlying companies globally and all that sort of stuff. So there isn't enough money. Endowments, countries will invest in the same way. So 10 million is neither here nor there. But what there is the behavioral psychology. And if you want to play at that game, what I've done in the past, I may have mentioned this as well, is we've got the concept of an investment playpen. It's like, good, knock yourself out. Go over there, invest in all this startup, this VC thing, this tech company, this you name it. And especially if you can do a tax wrapper around it in the UK, an EIS or something similar. So if it does blow up, at least it softens the blow by getting a tax break on it. And I've used that language as well. People quite like it, investment playpen. And I'm saying I'm not going to put it in your financial plan. I'm going to assume it's going to go to 0. If it does, to quote Andrew Hart, if it does a 10x or it does a 100x, then happy days. But I'm going to assume it's going to go to zero, and it might not. But it's a bit of dopamine for you. It's a bit of interest. It's a bit of fun, because my investments solutions, it's boring. But boring works. Seems to work quite well for Warren Buffett.
Try and not use the word boring. That's a very bad frame word with clients, but you do what you've got to do.
But I'm not speaking to clients. I'm speaking to you. It is boring.
Right?
You buy the world, and then you go, and as Nick would always say, you look out the window.
Andy, the ultra crepidarian Andy. He knows about everything. Andy can't be told anything.
I don't sing over your
His
jingle,
name is
Mr. Smith.
Andrew
Just be
Hart.
quiet, all right?
Andrew Hart.
Yeah, Alan, don't use the word boring. Christ, get with it. Come on, 20x your game with your grammar, Daddy. Get down with it. Let's go on to the next question, because this one, Carl, this would be a chance for you to chip in as well, and because Tempest is fugiting. Mark Russell, dear Trappist, who's on Twitter as @thefinancialp70, Papa70, to all, what would you consider to be the greatest innovation / leap forward in financial planning in the last 10 years? What innovation / leap forward would you like to see in the next 10 years? Wodgemeister, have at it.
Voyant is the answer to the first part. And the second part, is there a system that can tie everything together? So a platform, CRM system, financial planning, all in one go. I know there's some people working on it. David Ferguson and Seckle, for example. I think there's opportunity there big time.
Okay.
I would say the one fund solutions are quite innovative, as in the life strategy, the world allocation funds. I think they're pretty great. Invest and forget one fund solutions. I think they've been quite innovative, as weird as that sounds. In terms of what's coming in the future, I'm all about the behavioural financial advisor age. So yeah, I'm interested in that.
Mr. Smith, you are harumphing and grumping down the microphone now, so come on.
Yeah, what's your
the most revolutionary thing is like one fund. All right. Anyway,
that is revolutionary. I agree with Andy.
Come up
absolutely.
with one thing, Alan. Don't tell us a long-winded story.
Right,
I said the one fund solutions and the behavioral age. So go on. What's the greatest thing in the last 10 years?
I'm worried about the future.
And by the way,
what's the greatest thing in the last 10 years?
Heavy breathing.
I don't think there's been any innovation in the last 10 years.
Okay, that's your answer. Your answer is there has been nothing. Okay, cool.
Voyant is more than 10 years, and anyway, there's other things out there. But in the talk of the last 10 years...
In my experience, in Ireland, it's not.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
And that's
Nick?
Absolutely fine. What's interesting in the next 10 years is the technology to enable us to really, really personalize experiences more than ever been done before. We've still got a kind of one-size-fits-all to people. Personalize, automate, systemize at scale so that clients will get very individual experiences. The communications, you won't be doing a blog to everyone. You won't be writing a newsletter to everyone. You get very, very highly personalized, specific, based on the data that you have accumulated on behalf of your clients.
AI. Yeah.
GPT.
Next.
Okay, next. My quick step on this. I think the last 10 years, I'm not going to pick out one thing such as a cash flow modeling software, although Voyant is very good, and obviously we use it heavily, or a fund. I think just the last 10 years has been a gradual, fantastic upgrading of technology across the board. Just a whole variety of apps that now work pretty well together. That mean that we can do our job in a way we couldn't dream of doing 10 years ago. And that's from me. It's just the rising tide of great tech. Andy?
I will just throw in DocuSign and Calendly. I think they're absolute wonders, and they save me a shed load of time. They're fantastic. So there's going to be some random other tech solutions that are going to come out, I'm sure.
They would be in my rising tide, absolutely, those two brands. Okay, final question from our beloved Trappist. This one is from Graham R., who's on LinkedIn. I'm not going to read out his LinkedIn address. It's just dull. Hi, guys. I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm a big fan of the Trap podcast. Well, it is dull, isn't it? It's just holding the digits and things. I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm a big fan of the Trap podcast. Entertaining and educational in equal measure. I'm a Maven Money podcast. We'll skip through that. Question to Andy, please. I'm based in Scotland and work in business part-time and sports coaching part-time. I invest in global equities via Vanguard funds and was curious about your thoughts about their personal financial planning service. I appreciate this may compete with your own offerings, and I wonder what the key differences would be between theirs and yours. Thanks again, and please keep the show going. One of the few podcasts that frequently makes me laugh out loud. Jesus Christ. Okay, Mr. Hart, that is definitely one for you to grasp.
A couple of things here. It's interesting that non-financial advisors listen to this podcast. It does sort of blow my mind. I mean, a lot of stuff we talk about, surely it's inside baseball stuff, isn't it? Let me continue to talk, Alan.
No, there's a guy who came up to me through someone. Yeah, lots of other non-financial planning people are listening to this. Interesting.
Yeah. Shout out to the non-financial advisors listening to this show. Okay, so over to the question. So he's clearly a very wise individual listening to the Made Money podcast. I'm not entirely sure what Vanguard offer, but I'm sure it's going to be, bloody great. I did look into it when it was launched. As long as you can get to know a human that obviously looks after you and they do, financial planning, I'm sure they're going to be doing financial planning and doing it, quite cheaply. Because the question's been asked, I did look into this. I think the total all-in cost to use Vanguard personal financial planning software is about 0.8% a year, which is fantastic. My all-in fee is about 1.6, so it's twice as much. Will I be able to add 0.8% to your financial planning and to your overall, outcomes of financial planning and retirement planning? I think I would, but obviously I've got a vested interest. Will Vanguard force you to invest a just about uncomfortable amount every month because you're always trying to, the current self's always trying to wriggle out doing anything good for the future self? Will Vanguard put you in a fund or a portfolio that's predominantly in global equities and going to hold your hand through all market cycles? And will they be a strategic friend to discuss all financial and life decisions as they arise? That's the question. So, yeah, they're cheaper than us in terms of the plumbing side of it. But then the human side of it, I think that's where, they're not as good as, let's say, me. When you become a client of mine, you're a client of mine. You become a client of Vanguard, you're a client of Vanguard. And I'm sure the advisors move in and out like the wind. So that's it. You're committing yourself to a company, whereas with me, you're committing yourself to a person. So to me, I think the human connection's always going to beat the digital connection.
I think that's really,
over to you, Nick.
Well made, that point. I think that's really well made. And people, we're listen, we agree with things that suit our arguments, right? But and this is maybe a classic example of that. But we all think, I think, that our value comes from behavior modification and keeping clients sticking to the plan and just doing the sensible things because they believe us, because we are financial advice to our clients. We are the financial plan. If you're speaking to an employee, now Vanguard are really good, and we know they're really good, and they won't have the churn of staff that the banks typically have. But they're still, on the end of the day, an employee of Vanguard. They'll still be scripted on what they can and cannot say, and they won't. I don't think they'll be allowed to say, "F's sake, don't do that. Don't be a bloody idiot," which we can say with our clients because they're friends, aren't they? We're that much closer to them. So.
Just as an example on that, I got an email this morning from a client. I won't read it all out, but good morning, Andy. Yada yada yada. I've got some cash tax issues dealing with the business, and I've got some cash flow problems. Blah blah blah. I want to reduce my contributions for my pensions and ISAs down to, and she's quoted me two numbers. She wants the ISA to go down to basically $600 a month, and the pension to go down to $1,000. I immediately got back to her and said, "Yes, we can do that." Yada yada yada. And I said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I said they should feel a little bit uncomfortable financially. This means that they're at the right level. Your future self will thank you. And I pushed back to her and I said, "Shall we now agree £800 a month on the ISA and £1,200 a month on the pension?" She immediately got back to me and said, "Yes, Andy, that's a good idea. Let's do it." So I'm just saying, it's just a random example. Modifying their behavior along the way, nudging them up all the time to do good things to their future self. I don't know, how much is that worth to this client? And then I'm going to be back at her in 3 months saying, you need to nudge it up to the previous levels. You said this, again, that's an example of, the real human rather than just taking instructions. Anyway, that's me done.
That's worth gold to that client, Andy. And that is just such a good example of what real financial planning is all about.
And I was actually a little bit
psychological behavior.
And I was a little bit hesitant. I was just going to immediately reply back to her and just follow the instructions. I thought, no. This is exactly the time that I just, nudge, I always nudge them a little bit more anyway. So yeah, that's that. Over to you.
No, I think
isn't she lucky to have you by her side?
She's so lucky. I think this Vanguard sort of personal advice service is a kind of hybrid. It's neither one thing nor the other. If someone is just absolutely beginning their investment journey, they want to save £100 a month into an ISA or something, Vanguard DIY is fantastic. So I tell everyone, go online, open an account, start saving. You don't need financial advice. You don't need Andy Hart nudging. You don't need anything else. Just put in what's comfortable, what you can afford, chuck it in. And then as and when you accumulate, you've got a bit more, there's a bit more going on in your life, you've got a bit more complexity, and you need the sort of service that Andy's just described, then you hire a good, proper, thoughtful, independent advisor to look after you to do that. This thing in the middle is neither one thing or the other that Vanguard offer, and the cost differential is minimal, really, over time.
Yeah.
You still, it's not that cheap.
But remember, if you just compared the fees like for like 1.6 versus 0.8 and compounded that over 40 years, I'm costing them, 90 grand. But we know that that's not the reality. That's just
what you just said. The example you just said is going to be paid back, 10x.
Anyway, right. Off to Culture Corner, I think, Nick, before
I think so. I think they were, but they're really good questions. And we gave them so Trappist, it is important. If you keep them coming, just keep them coming through the link, right? In the pinned tweet, Advisor Podcast, or the exact same bloody link is in the so-called show notes. We couldn't make it easier for you. Do not send us emails or random LinkedIns, okay? Your question won't get answered, and you may well find yourself waking up next to a horse's head. Okay, that's how angry it makes me. All right, without any further ado, let's crack on to what
But thanks for your engagement, everybody. We really appreciate it.
We love you, Trappists.
Shut it.
You should see what he's like off air.
Okay, every time I do a soundboard transition,
this
you
has been a
guys freeze. So I'm
shambles.
going to quickly talk on a little bit here. This is Culture
Absolutely.
Corner. Maybe I'll do my.
Oh,
Culture
he's
Corner
gone
one
again.
first. So that by the time I finish talking,
I'm
you're back
taking
in the
over
room
as
with
chairman.
me. And my
Okay, we're
Culture
on to
Corner
Culture
is
Corner
the
now.
podcast, I think all four
So
of us
Alan,
can listen
over
to
to you for your
different
Culture
in-house
Corner,
hands,
please, my
because it's
friend.
one with many
Or me.
episodes, but this is by
Alan, over to you
podcast
for your
called
Culture
Modern
Corner,
Wisdom
my
by a
friend.
chap called Chris Williamson.
Right. Well,
An interesting guy from the
Lincoln's trying to
northeast.
unfreeze
I think he
himself.
originally
Just
ran
get on with it. I'm chairman.
nightclubs and
Over to you,
stuff
Alan Smith, for Culture Corner.
in Ibiza and so forth. But now he's based in Austin, Texas, and he has a
few
wide
years
range
ago, a
of
guy
guests on
called
his
Simon
show.
Sinek
His
was all
last
the
episode that I
rage.
listened
He
to was
came out
episode
with his book, Start With
582,
Why. His
and it's all the
TED
guest he
Talk,
was
I
with
think, is still
talks
one of the
about
most
the
popular
evils of
TED Talks
TikTok
ever given.
and whatever we think of social media and
he's
how
got a
pernicious it
podcast.
is. There
He's got
can
a
be no
podcast
doubt
called
that
A Bit of
TikTok is
Optimism.
without a shadow
And
of
his
a doubt
latest
in a league of its own in
episode,
terms
latest
of its
guest, I think it's well worth listening
unpleasantness.
to.
And I
if you
know
are a
that
Trappist
schools are trying to get
or
kids
if
off
you're
TikTok.
involved in financial services in general. He
and
speaks with a guy
that's
by the
my
name of
Culture
Divesh
Corner. Hopefully, you guys are
Makin.
still in the room.
And
Yep.
Nick, what are you doing?
Nick, don't worry. We're dealing with
Nick,
it.
stop
Carry on,
speaking.
Alan.
Divesh Makin, and Divesh runs a wealth management company in the United States, and you think you're doing quite well. He's got $80 billion assets under management, and he deals with celebrities, CEOs, billionaires, and gives them investment and financial advice.
Okay.
And I just thought it was a really good episode. He sort of unpacks how he works with them, his experience, sort of questions he asks. The summary position is not that much different to what you or I or anyone here does, but just with bigger numbers. But well worth checking out. A Bit of Optimism, Simon Sinek speaking with Divesh Makin.
Thank you, Alan. Over to you, Carl, for your Culture Corner, please, my friend.
My mic was muted. Sorry about that. I found a podcast called In Good Company, and the host is Nikolai Tangen, and Nikolai is the CEO of the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund.
Yeah.
And what he does is
I came across this guy recently. That's really weird, Carl. Sorry, mate.
Stop
Carry on.
interrupting him.
yeah, it's he does kind of short and snappy interviews with the CEOs of the companies that the fund has invested in. And some of the stuff is fabulous. So how I came across this was he interviewed Michael O'Leary, who doesn't go on podcasts, CEO of Ryanair, and Michael is just fantastic, just straight to the point. So I think that's the link that I've shared in terms of the show notes. But I listened to a good few of them. They're short and snappy. Larry Fink of BlackRock fame is interviewed in it. And what they all talk, so he asked them all a question about culture in your company. So, you know, from a Metas Ireland point of view, from a capital point of view, talking about culture and all of that kind of stuff is really, really important. But I absolutely loved it. And look, we're kind of gone beyond an hour, probably because this has been organized so poorly by Nick. But anyway, the beauty of that podcast is that they're short and sharp, and there is a lot to be said for it.
And that guy is very he's very accomplished. He's the CIO of the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund that looks after about 1.3 trillion. So they're invested in so many different companies. He's a very capable individual. So yeah, I haven't actually listened to the show, but I'm on their newsletter, so I'll definitely check that out.
And he makes the point that he took that job and he's taken a massive salary cut, and that it's the best thing that he ever did because he feels like he's making a real impact. But just a really interesting guy and brilliant host as well. Yeah,
It's a serious fund. Okay, over to me for my culture corner. My recommendation is the Founders podcast, spelt Founders as it is. I think there's about close to 300 episodes of this show now. They interview people he reads books and biographies by, famous business people from the past, things like J.D. Rockefeller, Walt Disney, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and just dissects their sort of strategies, key learning points. Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger feature on it quite a bit. I've been through a load of them, probably 50 or 60 or 70 of these shows. So I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's called Founders Podcast. And the last thing I was to say about Culture Corner, I'm listening to the band called Wet Leg. They've sort of been on repeat for the last few days. They're a band from the Isle of Wight, 2 girls. You probably heard their songs, but you didn't know that there was a band called Wet Leg. I'm loving the Wet Leg band. Okay, over to you, Nick, for Culture Corner, and then we'll close out the show.
Nick likes a wet leg. He's at that sort of time of his life.
Oh, this show has given me a wet leg. It's given me wet everything. I think I've given mine already. I think I was talking as you guys froze, so I don't know what's. Hopefully, it's in there somewhere.
We didn't.
No, you haven't given your culture call. Okay, all right. We'll assume you have.
No, trust me. You froze. The three of you were frozen, and I must have frozen at your end.
Nick, we can discuss this off air. Okay, let's close out the show. Nick, any final points?
Yeah, I think I froze Andy. That's what happened. Okay, so let's end that there. We are meeting. If you're listening to this show on February the 3rd, when it comes out fresh from the oven. The day after that, Saturday, February the 4th, we are still meeting, if we haven't killed each other beforehand, at the Royal Oak in Marylebone from about 1 o'clock-ish to watch the first round of the Six Nations. So please do come along and join us. If you're listening to this on Sunday the 5th, you missed out.
We'll be upstairs. We'll be upstairs in the pub. It's a private room, but you'll work it out. Walk to the back.
If you listen to this on Sunday the 5th or afterwards, weren't England poor? What a mighty victory for the Scots.
Didn't England do fantastic in the Calcutta Cup? 50 points to 10.
Fantastically. Didn't they do fantastically in the Calcutta Cup? Okay, leave a review on iTunes. 6 out of 5 stars. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube.
Don't ask for any reviews after this episode.
Don't ask for any reviews. Okay.
Right, that's
See
great.
you guys all too soon. Goodbye. Get out my computer.
Well done, Lick Ninken.
Bye-bye, Lick.
Bugger off.
Absolute shambles.